their EV trucks truck-shaped. Tesla's move fast and break things ideology worked well with the likes of the Model S and Model Y, Model 3, but only because they accepted some things had already been perfected by the century plus of automotive development and engineering, namely the shape of a vehicle. In applying a design-first, engineer-second mentality to Cybertruck, Tesla have put form before function. And that is what harms this truck as a truck. It's not as bad as the haters want it to be, but nor is it as good as the Tesla zealots would have you think. It has flaws and design choices which make it challenging to drive, infuriating to operate, and hard to love. Well, boy, is it engaging. It's engaging to look at, it's engaging to be inside, it's engaging and fun and exciting and exhilarating to drive. And it's very disruptive, which I know a not insignificant amount of Tesla drivers will absolutely love. Tesla has long had a design problem because all of their vehicles look exactly the same. Therefore, as their first Model S entered a decade plus of production and began to age, so too did their new models, such as the Model 3. Cybertruck has no such problems. And of the hundreds of people I've spoken to over the last few days whilst I've had this truck, most of them love the way it looks. It's easily the best Tesla I've ever driven. That is progress. To borrow another disruptive tech company's slogan, Tesla's superpower is to think different, selling you on the idea that the car you want is the car the way they designed it. But different doesn't always mean better. Here's the thing, this truck should not exist for so many reasons. It was devised by a child. It then had to be reverse engineered. And they didn't just engineer it, they over-engineered it. To the tune of 4+ years in development and hundreds of millions of dollars. They could have just turned in a pointy aluminium body on a Model X platform, but they decided to go for broke and try to make the Cybertruck something else, something more. They decided to actually try and make a truck. The Cybertruck is a ginormous gamble for Tesla. So has it paid off? I'm going to be completely honest. I love the way this truck looks. I've loved it since the moment we first saw that engineering car back in 2019. This is, of course, its own bespoke platform. That platform is the battery pack, which is structural, and a subframe bolted to the front and to the rear of it, onto which is dropped this spectacular, in my opinion at least, exoskeletal body, which is so strong that it's actually a structural component. Most composite structured cars have body panels which are so flimsy you could dent them with an elbow or a knee, behind which sits a crash structure which approximates the shape of the car to which the skin is affixed. Well, Tesla doesn't need to do that because of how strong the steel exterior of this truck is. I mean, that's remarkable. But then again, Tesla has a history of making very, very safe cars. The Model Y is the safest car in the world. It took its crown from the Model 3. Which took its crown from the Model S. So statistically, I think I'm in one of the safest places on Earth. This rolling tank of 1/4-inch thick steel. More on that later. But first, so how does it drive? Well, this is an obvious thing to say, but it's a Tesla. Feels like a Tesla. And that can be taken as both a good thing and a bad thing. Though, having said that, Tesla makes spectacular commuter cars, don't they? On the whole, at least. The air suspension does a really good job of covering up all the cracks and imperfections in the road and making it a really pleasant ride. It's nothing to write home about. I can feel and hear a little bit of the road imperfection from the tires. And the wind noise, well, that gets a little bit frustrating too once you get above sort of 70, 75 miles per hour. The blind spots, they're another big, big problem. When you're doing a left-hand to a right-hand turn, a hairpin, you just can't see anything that's going on in front of you. And I know that Tesla will say, well, that's what the cameras are for. But come on, if I can't see where I'm going, then how am I supposed to be in control of this gargantuan vehicle? This is the dual motor Foundation Series model. This is not a 3-motor Cyber Beast edition. So because of that, we have 2 motors one at the front and one at the rear. One of them is a permanent magnetic and the other is an induction motor. This dual motor model has 600 horsepower. What I think is by far and away the biggest success of the Cybertruck is this steering. In moving from 12-volt internal electronics to 48 volts, Tesla had the power system to be able to implement steer-by-wire. So there is no physical connection between the wheel I'm steering and the 4 wheels that are turning. Of course, the Cybertruck has rear-wheel steering. I did not like the steering on the Model S Plaid. I think they've sorted it out with the Cybertruck. They've done a really good job of implementing steer-by-wire at the same time as implementing rear-wheel steer. I love the way that the ratio alters depending on what speed you're doing, and all the while making this vehicle feel a lot smaller than it is. Very impressive. If, unlike me, you're not particularly bothered about variable steering ratio and insane suspension travel, then undoubtedly the most interesting thing about this car is its design, and more specifically, the material that it's made out of. HFS, or hard steel, was developed by Tesla for the Cybertruck, but it comes with a few problems. There have been a lot of news stories about this car rusting, even though it's a stainless steel truck. Well, we've put it to the test, we've let it get dusty, muddy, we've had it been rained on, and look, no rust. There are quite a few splotch marks here from the flies and also the fingerprints, which are driving me bananas. But that is the least of this truck's worries because we've got panel gaps, really, really bad panel gaps. This one is atrocious. This one is unforgivable. This car costs $102,000, let's remember. What else? At a place where 2 pieces of steel meet and fingers are often left, someone's going to lose a finger there. Or 4. Not good. What else? This is jagged as hell. These are both loose. And then we get to the tonneau cover. Sure, it's cool and you can jump up and down on it, blah, blah, blah. But is it still going to work in 5, 10, 15 years' time? I doubt it. The bed is a fair size, but getting stuff in and out of it is practically impossible. It also has a gap between the bed and the door, which is going to get full of mud and stones and cause some problems down the line. Not great. Oh, and driving with that tonneau cover open would result in about a 10% drop in the range efficiency. So my advice is keep it closed. For a long time, Tesla have dined out on the idea that minimalism is a good thing and that somehow minimalism equals luxury. I don't think that's the case, but there's just a touch more refinement than you see in some of the other models. So yes, Tesla have been listening to feedback, and that is crucial, I think, in developing a car that is as radical as this. So the interior is good, but the experience is spoiled somewhat by the lack of visibility. Side view mirrors made to be triangular are flawed, as is the rear view camera, which can't accurately show you what's going on more than 5 or 6 car lengths back behind you. The blind spots, as I've said, are plain dangerous. Coming around that left-hand turn then, I went to the blind spot to end all blind spots. That's worrying. That I don't like. Being a truck in name at least, one would expect that this thing should be able to handle some moderate off-roading. So with that in mind, let's go find ourselves some trails. I want to see what the Cybertruck can do on the dirt. So at the moment I have the vehicle in a medium ride height. That's about 10 inches of ground clearance. That can go up quite significantly. If I was to put it into high, go up to, I believe, 16 inches of ground clearance. Though, of course, with the car set to that ride height, you really have zero movement in the suspension. Being on air suspension, it handles the bumps pretty well. I do find it's kind of tossing me around from side to side quite a lot. See that? I mean, overall, just a little bit wooden. You know, it feels like a skateboard. Of course, we've got a spectacular amount of suspension travel, but the way that suspension interacts with this rather rigid exoskeletal body, that's where the trouble is, I think. The brakes, there's nothing really to say about the brakes. They work. I think sometimes the regen catches me off guard, and I don't love that when I'm in an off-road scenario. I sort of want to know predictably how the car is going to react underneath me. One thing which isn't helpful, of course, is the rear view mirror, which doesn't work because the tonneau cover is down, so it's looking into nothing. Overall, off-roading in the Tesla, well, as you saw, it did get over some fairly decent-sized little boulders and things of that nature, but it wasn't particularly convincing, and as soon as it was out of its comfort zone, it was out of its comfort zone. The story of the pickup truck is the story of function over form, that the things that a thing is supposed to do should dictate the way the thing looks. That is why pickup trucks haven't changed shape in close to a century.